Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Training Thursday. Today, I have a special guest, Trienne Topp. She is a leadership performance coach, and I'm just going to let her take it away because she's going to be able to explain better what she does than I will. But I'm so excited to have her on. And if you are joining us live, feel free to hop in the comments and ask questions. And we're just going to have a quick little interview this morning.
I love
Hi,
that. So,
Trienne. Thank you so much.
hey,
Yeah.
yeah, good morning to everybody, and thank you so much for having me be part of your group. The mom life near and dear to my heart. I've got two little girls. I've got an 11 and an 8. My strong-willed blessings for sure. Um, and so, what I do as a leadership performance coach is I really help people confidently look at the way that they are going about their leadership skills, and we also go next level. So, where am I at? Where do I want to be? And we fill in those gaps, right? Whether it's habit change or whether it's really just becoming that leader that you want to be. So my company is called Be That Create That. And the reason that I chose that was as we talk about manifestation, we always talk about just being, act as if, right? So if I want to be a better mom, if I want to be a better leader, if I want to be a better friend, I have to be that first and make that choice. And for me, leadership has always been about a decision or a choice in the moment. And parenting is no different, right?
Mhm. Absolutely. It's all in the moment, I mean, it really is.
Yeah. So when I talk about creating a leadership lifestyle, it's really all aspects of our lives, right? We want to be a better leader at home. We want to be a better leader at work. We want to be a better leader where it really starts, which is with ourselves. And again, that comes with every decision that we make in the moment. So, first, I think we have to slow ourselves down and we have to say, okay, what do I want to be known for? And when it comes to work, do I want to be known as a resource for people? Do I want to be known to have great work ethic? Do I want to be the creative? Do I want to be the go-to person when someone wants to get stuff done? Like, we really have to think about what it is that we want to be. And then we make those decisions to get us to that point with that in mind. It's about having that vision. And I don't think it's any different in parenting. As we were talking about, my girls are 8 and 11. And I remember a time when Tegan was 4 and she was in the bathroom and we were arguing, and I had to stop myself. And I was like, I am arguing with a 4-year-old right now. First of all, she doesn't have the mental capacity to understand that we're arguing. And why am I yelling at a 4-year-old? She doesn't understand. This was more about me, right? So I decided then and there, I'm like, I'm not going to yell at my kids anymore. I'm not going to yell at them. That's not how I want to parent. That's not where I want to be. And from 4 to 6, we really had some challenging moments. 6 to 7
Mhm.
was probably Tegan's hardest year for both of us. But because I made a choice back when she was 4 that I wanted to be a different kind of parent, when those moments came along, I slowed myself down. When I needed to leave the room, I left the room. I was very vocal about, I remember one time she came in and she was yelling at me about something. And I said, I respect myself too much and I love you so much that I am not going to have a conversation like this. And she was like 6.
Mhm.
And I said, we can come back to talk to each other when we are both calm and we're ready to talk about our feelings.
Mhm.
So she did leave the room. And then she came back and I said, Tegan, I don't want to yell. I don't want to fight. And she said, I don't want to fight either, but I do want to talk. I'm like, okay. And she's 11 now, like I said, and we have some great conversations about friendships and choices and what she wants for her life and how she's doing in school. And it all started with 4 years old saying, I don't want to be the kind of parent that is controlling and strict and yelling. I just don't want to do that.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way, and I'm making those same choices, and my household is hectic, I'm not gonna lie. I have an almost 11-year-old that's in 5th grade. My son is 5, he just started kindergarten. He is literally the most defiant child. So, my background, I basically grew up in a home daycare. My mom did home daycare with my sister and I and our little brother for over 30 years. So we basically have had a ton of brothers and sisters. My mom has raised lots and lots of kids. She has told me that my son Conrad is the most defiant child that she has ever met.
Mhm.
And it kind of freaks me out, you know, and he's been difficult. He's been throwing tantrums essentially since he was about a year old, and it's just really challenging. But
So I know that I talk about Tegan a little bit from a rebellious standpoint. She'll even tell
Mhm.
me, she can vocalize. I said, Tegan, you need to go do the dishes. And she told me that night, she said, I don't mind doing the dishes. I don't like being told when and how to do it. And I said, okay. So
Okay.
the fact that
Mhm.
she had that awareness, I was like, dang, girl. But
Yeah.
um, but I said, okay, so something you need to understand then is that eventually sometime in your life you're going to be told what to do unless you have a business of your own and you have to figure that out. But even then your customers are going to tell you what to do, right? Um,
Mhm.
so what I helped her with was, okay, how about I offer you a time frame? Or what I said to her was, you tell me what time you're going to go do those things. And all I'll say to her is, you told me you were going to do the dishes or take a shower at 8 o'clock. And now it's 8 o'clock. So it's time to go do that. So you're
Mhm.
putting sometimes those outbursts, and again, I'm not a parenting coach, but what I've learned from my own girls is
Mhm.
those outbursts can be from them feeling like they have a lack of control of anything in their life. And again,
Mhm.
if leadership is about choices and decisions, how do we help them say, so what do you think that you could do right now? You're obviously frustrated, you're obviously upset. What do we do next? And that next is really where kids' brains are at. What am I going to do next?
Right. Yeah, and they need to be guided there and not just, like, told every step of the way. Like, I've actually, like, read a couple books on that, like, giving kids choices and helping them so that they do feel, you know, a little bit more in control of, you know, their life, their day, or the situation.
Mhm.
And, you know, I do try to give my kids choices a lot, like, even picking activities.
Yeah.
You know, and that has definitely helped with my son, especially like if he chooses to do Play-Doh and then he's having an outburst, then I remind him, like, this is the activity that you chose to do. You
Mhm.
know, can I help you with it? And that has helped him like turn around a little bit and he'll be like, oh, yeah, I did want to do Play-Doh. This is what I'm trying to do. Because I'm always there to help them.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's, you know, stopping those outbursts and helping, especially helping him to just vocalize. My so I have 2 daughters too, 3 and 2 months old, and my 3-year-old, you know, she's kind of similar, she's not super defiant, but, she's still learning how to, like, communicate and just explain what she needs when she's frustrated, so I'll use a lot of the same things with her too. But yeah, just staying calm, they need those choices too.
Well, and I remember, so Blake, my youngest, she came home from kindergarten when she was 6, and we, like you said, the home feels chaotic sometimes. So
Mhm,
kids want that structure, right? So there's a couple things that I tried to do. I tried to create a nighttime routine. I tried to create that morning routine. One of the things I do is called a tonight for tomorrow list. So I'll make a list of everything we have going on the next day. And if it's softball practice, then the softball bag is by the back door, ready to go the night before. If it's like today was picture day for my daughter, so I asked her, what shirt are you wearing? How do you want your hair? What are we doing, right? And again, you're making her make those choices, but you're setting them up. um,
mhm,
but I remember she was 6 and she was in the bathroom and I was like, okay, it's tub time, like, let's go. And she started crying and I said, what's going on? How can I help? Because they know what they need, they just need to tell
mhm,
you, right?
mhm,
And again, how do you create that leadership in them is you make them make those decisions and you kind of guide them, like you said. And she said, I get told to do what to do at school. I get told what to do at grandma's house. I get told what to do when I come home. And I just never have time that I get to choose. And I thought, you're so right.
mhm,
So what we did is right when she gets home from school, she gets anywhere from half an hour to an hour. It's got to be age appropriate, obviously, to just decide what she wants to do with it. And then, yeah, the rest of the stuff kind of is a timeline so that we can be best prepared for our next day and put our best selves forward. And they know that that's the reason for the structure, but they also realize they need to have a little bit of downtime too, just as much as we do.
mhm. Yeah, I we have a similar routine with our 5th grader. You know, she knows that when she gets home from school, she's allowed to be on her tablet or do whatever she wants. That's her time. But then after dinner, she does homework, and then we are getting ready for the next day. So she's already in that routine. We've been doing that for a while.
Mhm.
But now with my son just starting kindergarten, it's all new. So
Mhm.
he's starting to learn, like, okay, I come in, I take my shoes off and wash hands, I have a snack, and then I get to play. So
Mhm.
he's like learning that.
And I think you'll see less emotional outbursts when they know what's happening next.
Oh,
I know
absolutely.
once they have that structure and they kind of know what to anticipate, they just want to know what's next. I remember when I wanted to write my first book, I was going to call it Management Lessons I Learned from My 4-Year-Old, because I really did feel like me regulating some of those conversations with her, me regulating my own responses rather than allowing myself to react to those outbursts or us fighting or
Mhm.
her not doing what I wanted her to do. Um, Made me a better leader at work, because when I got upset with one of the teenagers that was working in the restaurant, I had to ask myself, okay, am I teaching them in the correct way? Did I ask appropriately? Did I show them the right way to do something? I mean, it really made me think about all my personal interactions. And when someone got a little, heightened, instead of
Mhm.
being like, what are you doing? I could be like, okay, in my mind, I wanted to respond instead of emotionally react. So why is this happening? How can I help you? What do you need
Mhm.
from me? And being the calm that they needed.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and we do that too. We'll talk through, and like my son, he usually just needs to be separated from the situation when he's really having an outburst. So, I try to just have him like take a break in his room. I don't call it like timeout. He's not punished. It's really
Right.
just like sometimes I just need to separate my kids from each other, because having, a 10-year-old, a 5-year-old, an almost 4-year-old, like they're intense and they just, they need to be separated sometimes.
Well, and I love
So,
that you don't call it a timeout, because it really is about them taking control of how they need to spend their time and calm themselves down. So even saying,
mhm.
it seems to me like you need to take a little time to yourself.
Absolutely. And I'll give him ideas of things to do, because
Mhm.
usually he's just yelling and screaming and I'm asking him repeatedly, how can I help you? What's wrong? What can I do to help you? And it's like once I've asked you 3 times and you're just throwing a fit, like you need to like self-regulate before we can have a conversation. So, typically I'll just walk him to his room. Sometimes that doesn't even go well, or he won't want to stay in there. But I'll tell him, like, take a deep breath, read a book, think about what's wrong. When you can come and talk to me, come on out,
Yep.
come on out and talk to me. And then he'll come into the kitchen, or he'll come find me and he'll say, well, my tablet won't turn on, or he'll just say the issue. And it's usually something small that I can help him with. But yeah, we're really practicing that so that he can just, learn how to cool down and explain what it is that he needs.
Well, I think we also have to think about the way that we feel when we get labeled. I used to say that Tegan is my cautious one, but she's curious, right? Blake is not cautious. She is impulsive. So Tegan would be like, hey, mom, I want to stand on the table. Do you think I should use the chair or the stool? Do you think if I get up there, I should stand up slowly? She'd ask all these questions and then she would
Mhm.
do, she'd think it out. Where Blake would be like, hey, mom, I'm on the table, banana in one hand and sippy cup in the other. So she was more like, I want to do this, right? So I got to really thinking about the labels I was putting on my kids. I was saying that Tegan was always cautious. I was saying that Blake was always impulsive. So I had to kind of flip that switch for myself. And again, if we are thinking about manifestation and we're acting as if and we're putting labels on those things, um, how would I feel if somebody called me cautious? It would make me feel maybe meek. It would make me feel like I was indecisive. It would make, So for Blake, rather than saying she's impulsive, I always say, you are so creative. Now let's really think about what's going to happen if we make these two different choices before we do it. I just want to make sure that you have the most fun possible. Right. So rather than saying she was impulsive, it was that she was creative. And for Tegan, instead of being like, she's so cautious, I would say something like, she really thinks through the solutions. She really
Mhm.
is a problem solver. Because that is what's happening, is she's thinking
Mhm.
about all the things. So I had to take those labels that I was putting on them and go, okay, so what is it really? And how can I make this one of their strengths?
Yeah, I probably need to work on that, because my son, I'm just, after battling his defiance for 4 years, like, that is just sometimes all I can think is just, "My son, he's so defiant, he's so defiant." And I mean, he's absolutely impulsive and wild, and I mean, even dangerous. Like, he climbed on his sister's, the top bunk, and we don't even have the ladder up because that would just be too easy. So he, like, figured out how to get up there. He's climbing up his bookshelf. I mean, he's just doing all sorts of things that are just
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah. So, in that case, again, I'm not completely in your situation. If we were doing some sort of coaching, then we would talk more in depth about it, right?
Mhm.
But the first thing that it makes me think of is, what are the things that make you feel like it's the word defiant? Because does he know the boundaries? Does he know the rules? Is there a reason that he goes outside of those boundaries or outside of those rules? Is it because he feels like he doesn't have the freedom and other choices in his life? The other thing that it makes me think of is there for a while, Blake would do some of those things because that's how she got my attention.
Yeah.
So I had to start when she was doing things that were attention worthy to me. I had to really make sure I was like, wow, Blake, that was really cool that you figured that out. I had to make sure that I was thanking her and appreciating her for the things that she was doing that, in my sense, were correct. Um,
Mhm.
rather than, wow, yeah, you got on the table. Now you need to get down. It was more of like, okay, you figured out how to get cereal yourself. That's so cool.
Mhm.
I had to appreciate the stuff that I was okay with her choosing for herself.
Yeah, and I mean, I know what you mean, like, my kids there's a lot of times they do things just because they're trying to get a rise out of me, and they absolutely know the rules, like, they for sure know them, and we explain, like, "These rules are not for you to have less fun, these rules are to keep you safe, and I'll explain the situation, like, the reason why you can't do this is because this could happen and you could get hurt."
Mhm.
So that they're understanding, like, oh, they're not just trying to, like, be a bummer all the time or, just constantly tell me what to do. It's like always safety, and sometimes they're learning the hard ways, like, no, we don't slam doors because you can get your fingers pinched. Well, it's happened. Not
Remember
that
that
they
time that you crawled on the bunk bed without a ladder and then you got stuck up there and, you could have fallen? It's like, okay, if you want to get on the top bunk, just let me know and I'll make sure that you have the ladder in place and we'll make sure that, so it's like, I
Mhm.
understand that you want to do that. Now, how can we just do it in a way that's going to also keep you safe?
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely.
So I love that you're describing those things to them. So many parents are just like, you know, yeah, don't stand on the top bunk. Okay, well, why? Kids don't understand. Like, why am I not supposed to do that? It's like we need to play safe on the top bunk to make sure that you're still having fun while you're being careful. So explaining, I think a lot of parents just are like, this is what you shouldn't do, and they forget the leadership part of explaining. Kids want to know just as much as we want to know.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, there's even things where I'm like, I think I'm over explaining. I don't think they know what I'm talking about. But, I'll talk to my kids with a higher maturity level. Like, and
Yes.
I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I know my mom did that with me, and I had a good vocabulary and could express myself where people around were like, wow, she can say that, or wow, you talk to her like she's an adult. And we did that with when I married my husband, Eleanor was 4, and we always did that with her, and her vocabulary has always been really good, and she's extremely creative and excels in that, in reading and writing and things like that. And we do that with the littles too, and I hope that it helps. I mean, I know they're good with vocabulary, but I hope that they're understanding things because I do take the time to explain to them and not just like tell them like this is the rule.
Well, and I think it goes back to, that golden rule of treat people the way you'd want to be treated. The platinum rule, treat people the way that they want to be treated. I think when you mix those things and you think about, if I was a kid, right, would I want to be controlled all the time? Or as we look down the road, if I want this person to be what my sister used to call a good functioning member of society, she'd always say, I just want my sons to be a good functioning member of society. It was like, okay, well, if I look down the road, decision making is going to be one of those things that is going to be really important for them and that's going to be life changing for them. So, how do I get them to
Mhm.
understand early on, first of all, that they have decisions? As my mom used to say, you can make your decisions, you can't always choose your consequences. So if I choose to do this, what's going to happen? I mean, basic problem solving that is going to help them, later on when we are not standing right there saying, don't go to that party. Don't get in a car with that friend. Don't, yeah. How do they determine those things on their own?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
So I think when you're talking again, creating leadership lifestyle, I think first we have to start with ourselves. So we were talking about morning routine earlier. One of the things that I have in place is right now I'm traveling, I'm visiting my parents, but I have a pretty solid morning routine that has some personal development in it, that has some movement in it, that has some me time, right? And then I feel like I'm planned out for the day. So I feel more successful. Again, I'm not stressed. I'm not feeling like I'm reacting to anything that's happening. It's more of a response because I have a plan. And there's no earliest time to start that. I think we can start that with our kids right away by helping them choose their outfit for the next day, in a bunch of different ways. Which snack do you want? You have to get up for school early in the morning. Do you really think that we should stay up past bedtime? How is that going to feel tomorrow? Um, so I think once we get ourselves set, then we can share some of those skills that work for us with our kids in a way, a little bit at a time. But I also think because kids are going to do what they see, we are, they're a mirror of some of the things that they see, some of the things that they hear. Um, I think we have to also think about if I want my child, again, to be a good functioning member of society, how am I showing them how to do that? How am I being the example of that? In the drop off line, when somebody cuts me off, am I honking and being like, what in the world, you big idiot? Or am I like, wow, that person must have really been in a hurry?
Mhm. Yeah. Mhm.
Or the drop off line was really long, couple like first days of school. And I remember saying, instead of being like, oh my gosh, what's going on with this? I was like, we could just spend more time in the car together this morning. And then I laugh about it because I also want them to know I'm not a Pollyanna all the time, but I can take a situation and I can look at the positive
Mhm.
of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, we don't need to be frustrated about everything. Yeah, I mean, and a lot of it does start with the way that we feel and act in
So
front of them. Like, I was extremely scared, I'll just say that, when I found out that I was pregnant with Kaylee because it's already really stressful with the 3, and my son and daughter are 16 months apart, so it's almost kinda like twins, and
mhm,
they definitely know how to play me, like, I'm talking to one and the other one's tearing something up in the other room, it's like you feel like you can't ever be on top of it because, you've got
mhm,
2 that are both really wild. Um, so I spent like probably the last 6 months of my pregnancy just working on self-development and just like really thinking and manifesting what I wanted and how I wanted to be, and that I really wanted to be a happy, healthy mom. And
mhm,
I didn't feel like I was. I suffered with postpartum depression after I had McKenna. And so I was just terrified. I'm like, I'm not going to be able to handle those emotions. I'm not going to be able to handle all these kids. And so I focused so much on myself and just really figuring out what I needed. And it is amazing, like what manifestation and just, believing what you can do because somehow I'm calm with
mhm,
all this chaos. And somehow, I'm not having to raise my voice all the time. Not that my kids are like behaving amazing, but I feel like I know that I'm not raising the temperature in my house. Like
mhm,
I'm not upset and then it's making, they're not feeding off of that energy where I'm just stressed energy all the time.
mhm.
And somehow I'm managing, and it's like I just thank God because I don't really know, it's like between prayer and just really believing and visualizing what I wanted, and now it is like coming true, and it is helping me to be a better parent because I'm calm in all these situations.
And I love that you are aware of I'm not raising the temperature of my house because that really is, I mean, whether we name ourselves that or not, we are the matriarchs of our house, like our household. We are the CEO, if you want to call that, of the household.
Mhm.
So people are going to reflect how we have set it up, how we are acting, the energy that we're putting out. And it's not going to be perfect all the time. I
Mhm.
really pray that people do not put that kind of stress on themselves. But there are things that you can put in place that 90% of the time you feel like a good leader for your family.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that is like we have to not put so much pressure on
Mhm.
ourselves. Like we're the ones that make us feel bad. Like we're the ones that put that mom guilt on ourselves, and that's like that's just personal development and like really just working through your mindset,
Mhm.
really.
Well, and people say, oh, don't be afraid to ask for help. Yes, don't be afraid to ask for help. However, I would challenge the word help because your family, I will say to my girls all the time, you live in this house too. It's not helping me. You are taking care of your house. This is not my sole job, right? And the same thing with our partners. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Well, first of all, it shouldn't be help, right? It's a equality. But the other piece of that is from my experience, my husband does not always see the same things as I do, and I have to be respectful of that. He just
Mhm.
doesn't see it. And if I don't say, "Hey, could you get some hamburger out so that we can make tacos tonight when you get home from work?" He's not going to think to pull something out for. It's just not part of his aura, you know.
Mhm.
So I can't be upset or resentful with him if I have not set him up for success. Also, so I always also think that over communication is a good thing. Like you were saying with your kids, I over communicate. I don't necessarily think there's such a thing as over communicating because we want to be very clear.
Mhm. It's funny that like, a few days later, or even like weeks later, they'll repeat something that I said, and I'm like, "You were listening? Like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think you heard me."
Yes, I remember one time I walked into the bathroom and Tegan was looking at herself in the mirror and she said, "Don't say sorry, just do better. Don't say sorry." And she kept saying it over and over, and I was like, uh, does that sound as good with her saying it as it did when I said it to her? Like, I had to stop for a second just to understand, like, was that a good mantra for her? And yes, it's gotten her to say, "I'm sorry," less. And I've also said to them before, like, "Do not apologize for being you. So what?" You know? So I just think you have to be mindful. I think you have to be thoughtful of your decisions and the words that you're using because those little ears are always listening.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on and just, sharing some wisdom with us. I love it.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me part of the group. I think that our leadership really does start at home. And then these kids take it on with them just like a backpack when they leave every day. And I would love to see more women just taking that leadership of their household so that they're not feeling stressed. I'm not going to say there's no reason to feel stressed because we have reasons to feel
Mhm.
stressed, but
Yep.
how do we get ourselves to a point where we are coping and we're working towards that next level version
Mhm.
of who we want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really like my thought process behind the group is that like we know that motherhood is stressful and we know that it's hard.
Mhm,
But, instead of popping in a group and complaining or just venting, like
mhm.
what can we do to be better? And so, this group is based off of, having people with all different expertise come on and just, share and just help us to be better, work on ourselves.
Yeah, I appreciate you letting me be a part of that. Also, if people want more of that leadership lifestyle and they want to have more of that conversation, they're welcome inside the female leader headquarters too. I'll put that in the notes for you in the chat. Because in the female leader headquarters, we have everything from, real estate brokers to people who are in a 9 to 5 type of team leading career to stay-at-home moms. I mean, we have a wide spread because really we're all leaders of our own lives.
Mhm.
That's not different. We just do it in different ways throughout our day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks again, Trienne. And yeah, make sure to share your socials so people can connect. And thanks again for coming on.
Mhm. Yeah, I appreciate it. Everybody have a great day.
Bye.